You know, I don't think there's a better term to describe the music of the Lovin Spoonful and John Sebastian. Just good time music. It's not only back on the radio, it's always been on the radio here at WFDU FM. And John Sebastian joins us today. He's going to be performing at the South Orange Performing Arts Center this coming Friday, October 11th. John, welcome to the show. You know, you mentioned the Mersey River in that song, and as I understand it, the Beatles played something of a role, indirectly, I suppose, in the formation of the Lovin Spoonful.
Well, I had gotten an invitation from Cass Elliot to come over to her house, and at the time she was living in New York, and watch the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And oh, by the way, Ringo will be there.
That's what she told you.
That's what she told me, and I'm trying to figure out what is she talking about. But it's Cass. You know, don't discount it.
Right.
You know, it's Cass.
It
you
could
don't
happen.
know what she's come up with. And so I go to her house. She opens the door, and indeed a very Ringo-like character, except larger and more Russian Jewish, is standing in the doorway, and we shake hands, and we immediately take out guitars, waiting for the show to start. We're sort of playing, then we're watching, then we're playing some more, then we're watching when they do the next number, and so on. And then that evening ended, and for 2 days, Zal and I were calling Cass like little schoolgirls, going, I loved playing with that guy. You know, who is that? And on his part, he was going, that's the cleanest guy I've ever heard on fingerpicking. And it was a kind of a mutual admiration society, and it was the, you know, drop of the needle for the beginnings of what would eventually be the Lovin Spoonful. I would actually know Zal through two other bands, and I would still be a studio guy in New York, and it did take a year and a half or so, but by that time we were a duo looking for bass and drums.
And I think it's interesting that the music of the Lovin Spoonful, despite the fact that you guys all came up through the Greenwich Village folk scene, didn't go political. I mean, that was kind of what everybody was expected to do at that time. Well,
first of all, the components of the group were different than the components of those other groups that might have, used Bob Dylan's song to kind of describe their position on things, and really it was mainly a matter that we didn't have that particular skill, and also we weren't using other people's material, and we weren't recording with the Phil Spector rhythm section.
Right.
And so that did distinguish us from a lot of groups of that day.
Well, you guys had one hit after another. I mean, you didn't have to be so nice. Daydream, Summer in the City, Younger Girl. Did you ever have to make up your mind? I could just run through the whole list here. But I guess one of the biggest, the first big hit for the Lovin Spoonful was Do You Believe in Magic? And I saw you speak on a TV show about this once. I think it was the John Lennon's Jukebox special that was on PBS, and he had that song in his jukebox. And you explained that song, the inspiration for that song, actually came from hearing Martha Reeves and the Vandellas and Heatwave.
Yes, I do tell that story in the show, as a matter of fact, very often. And it was the result of a set of changes that I admired. And, it was really gospel. But I was sort of seeing it through these new Motown eyes,
right.
I guess, yeah.
It's just funny because both of those songs are in my DNA, and until you said that, I never would have known that there was an influence.
Most of these kind of inspirations are are not always logical. But,
Right.
it is fun to explain that part of it, and also it stretches the show out a little bit.
We're talking to John Sebastian today of the Lovin Spoonful, and of course he's doing his solo shows, and you can catch him October 11th, this coming Friday, at the South Orange Performing Arts Center in, of course, South Orange, New Jersey. John, I know that prior to the formation of the band, you did a lot of session work, and I was wondering, do you still do any session work these days?
I sure do. I love to get a little work now as a rhythm guitarist or a harmonica player, and those things come up, and over the years there's been a couple of real wonderful little oddities. One was that I got a call from Jerry Marotta, one of my favorite drummers in the area, and he was on a session and said, come on over, we just need a guy to kind of hold down a rhythm guitar thing that just like bashing all 6 strings. I said, please, I'd love to do this. I go over there, very, very nice young woman. We do this session, and about a year later, I find myself on 3 Jewel first singles. Those first 3 singles of Jewel's, and it was very funny because they were very much remixed as time went on. I finally ran into the original producer, and I said, so can I tell my nieces that I'm on a Jewel record? He said, oh, yes, you're the halo around the boyfriend's guitar. I said, oh, great.
Well, I mean, she wound up being, just a tremendous artist.
Tremendous talent.
Yeah.
Dream lasts for
one of your, I guess, most famous sessions would have to be with the Doors, and I think people find it a little odd because at that time, the Doors were like the most dangerous band in America.
People did not draw a direct line between the two of us, but there was a direct line, and that direct line was Paul Rothchild, the producer. And Paul had had a lot of experience with me in his previous life at Elektra in New York, where I accompanied a number of sometimes not always the most famous people, but guys like Timmy Hardin and Freddie Neal and Tom Paxton and a double handful of young white boys trying to play blues.
Right.
And then so when everything moved out to the West Coast and I began an album with Paul, and then I think it was pretty much after that album that Paul said, geez, I need somebody to do this Doors thing. You're the guy. Just come in and be patient, and we're going to get this thing. So I did indeed go in, and I must admit, I know it's a huge disappointment to a lot of Doors fans, but I was so totally amazed. We had the wham of that Memphis man.
Oh, Lonnie Mack.
Lonnie Mack on bass. And I was going, I'm in the room with Lonnie Mack. And so, when people are always, what was it like being in the room with Jim Morrison? And I kept to just say, it's all a matter of timing,
Right.
1 minute the guy is a huge idol, and but the minute before it's just, the bozo that sings with the guys. And, you kind of don't pay any attention to him. Just watch Manzarek. Everything will be fine.
Right.
And that was really the main instruction that I got from Paul, and he was totally right. And but it was very live. I did enjoy the session an awful lot because it was, not like that kind of layered production. It was pretty simultaneous.
We're talking to John Sebastian today. You know, a lot of artists have covered your material, and maybe one of the strangest or most unusual was when David Lee Roth covered Coconut Grove.
And, but he did such a good version
Yeah.
of that. I was so ready to get all after his... But, it's funny, we have an odd connection in that his father, Manny Roth, ran the Café Hua. So, I remember when he was little, he was already, hanging around McDougal Street, and I was living 4 blocks away. So that was a real delightful, unexpected thing.
I'm curious if you still follow music these days. I mean, aside from Jewel, obviously.
Well, of course, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I can't say that I do, other than the fact that I listen to the radio.
Right.
I still have that hunger and that enjoyment of finding out what is in the top 10. And because I tour and don't always have one of those fancy radios, I'm listening to what everybody else is listening to. And like I'm listening to Roar just the same as everybody else this week.
I should tell, for the audience members that don't know, that's the new Katy Perry song. Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
And all of you old folkies, just shut up. Don't even try. Don't worry about it.
I don't think I'd be able to let you go without asking about Welcome Back. Because it's just, it's a strange thing a song can do because, of course, it's associated with the TV show. How did that whole situation come about, recording that song?
Well, the way it emerged, I was sort of on the tail end of a relationship with Warner Brothers Records. And they were, I was actually asking if I could go to a smaller pond, kind of, and then to keep busy while, they weren't really promoting my records, I ended up taking a number of jobs in television and animation, and one of them was this show where I was shown a pilot and a couple of first episodes and a few scripts and so on. So even though I didn't really have Warner Brothers to back me up, I went into the studio on my own money with my live band pretty much, except the drummer was away. So that may be one of the rare top records of a year that had no kit on it.
Oh, okay.
It's hand claps
Yeah.
and a small Indian tom-tom that just had a nice thump to it. But we recorded that one afternoon. I pretty much, I wrote the song. I came back to the guys, the producers, and I said, look, the only thing that I hope you don't expect is I'm not going to use the word cotter because nothing rhymes with it, and so, but I'm going to write on the subject.
Right.
And so that, this whole thing of the sweat hogs, that was very easy to sympathize with because I was, as a dyslexic kid in a time when nobody was that interested, I was always repeating classes and back in repeating algebra and, strange, summer courses on and on. So I was very sympathetic with that idea of being that underdog class of students. And so it was very easy to write that song.
We've been talking to John Sebastian today, who will be performing at the South Orange Performing Arts Center on October 11th, Friday, and you can find more information at johnsebastian.com. And John, I'm assuming at that show we're going to hear some Lovin Spoonful hits.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely.
October 11th.
Yes.
Oh, maybe even Welcome Back.
It could happen.
South Orange Performing Arts
I
Center.
get one of those audiences that'll sing back. There you go. Now I'm doing all the tunes that need those backup vocals because I save enormous amounts of money on background vocals.
You have probably the largest choir going.
The largest, yeah, that's right.
And like we alluded to before, you tell the stories behind the songs.
Yeah, very much of it is just kind of the narrative of where the song came from or the ideas that got the thing percolating, and I think it's sort of more fun for the audience to discover it the way I discovered it. The other thing, of course, is that it's a one-guitar rendition of productions that usually involves at least 8 overdubs.
Right.
So there's a comical aspect to it, too. But the fact is I try to get the job done with one big arch top and a baritone guitar and a couple of harmonicas, and that's basically the idea.
Well, thanks so much, John, for spending this time with us. And once again, October 11th, South Orange Performing Arts Center. Do yourself a favor and go see John Sebastian. Enjoy the music, and you might learn something, too.
Well, thank you so much for your interest, and thanks to your audience. And indeed, come on down.